June. Today also marks the start of Armed Forces Week, and I was delighted to attend with colleagues today the raising of the Armed Forces flag here at the Civic Centre. We are extremely grateful for our organisations locally that support our military veterans, including King Housing, and we look forward to seeing the events that unfold during this. Okay, so moving to apologies for absence. We have apologies from Dan Jones and Chuck, and I understand that Johnny Bosley will be attending in place of Dan. Are there any other apologies? No, okay. Moving to the declarations of pecuniary interest. Are there any to declare? No. Okay. Moving on to minutes of the previous meeting. Are the minutes approved?
Agreed.
Thank you. We'll move to item 4, which is a scrutiny reference from the EV charging task group. And we'll ask Councillor Attaway, who's chair of the task group, to speak for 3 minutes to introduce this item.
Good evening, everybody. As chair of the task group reviewing the Council's EV charging strategy, I'm pleased to put before you the recommendations from this cross-party working group. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. A transition to EVs will support a reduction in the vehicular emissions that contribute towards climate change and local air pollution, and is in accordance with Merton's strategic objectives and policies. Merton will be developing an EV charging strategy, an infrastructure strategy for publication in 2023. To support this work, at its first meeting, members of the EV task group agreed they wish to make recommendations that would help shape this important strategy. As a working group, we met and heard from the Cabinet Member for Transport and future Merton to understand better what Merton was currently doing, the different types of charging offer available to residents, and its vision going forward for the borough. We sought input from Transport for London, Party Services, and Gully to understand better how the home to off-street parking charging could work and be implemented here in Merton. We also looked at what other boroughs were doing to compare best practice. Members considered issues around locations, charging speeds, driver behaviour versus active travel, the varied costs of charging, as well as the increasing costs of hazards to pedestrians by residents running charging cables across the footway. The task group felt that it was important for Merton Council to lead by example, work with housing associations to improve charging opportunities in the east of the borough, where currently there seems to be a higher concentration than the rest. The task group have agreed and believe that these 12 recommendations before you are the most important, realistic, and achievable for this administration, which should be incorporated into Merton's EV charging strategy.
Thank you very much, Councillor Attaway. Councillor Alan Britton.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Councillor Attaway, and thank you to your task group and for engaging with me on this important subject. I can commit tonight to ensuring that all those 12 recommendations are considered fully in our EV strategy, which you so kindly mentioned. Thank you very much.
Thank you. John, do you have anything to add? Thank you. So, as a cabinet, we've been asked to agree recommendations 1 and 2. Are they agreed?
Agreed.
Brilliant. Thank you. Okay, so we're moving on to the next scrutiny reference. Thank you very much, Councillor. Scrutiny reference on school streets, scrutiny reference on active travel, scrutiny reference calling on the traveller side, scrutiny reference on development control, and scrutiny reference on homelessness. And we're joined this evening by Councillor Neveson to report back. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to speak on these recommendations. Before I get into them, I'd like to say 2 thank yous. The first is to Councillor Atwa for her work shepherding the electric vehicle task force over the past year, the outcomes of which I think represent a robust and progressive way to manage the EV transition in Merton over the years to come. The second is to all members of the Sustainable Community Scrutiny Panel who have contributed to our work over the previous year and the recommendations we are considering today. While of course there have been differences, I'm proud of the spirit and the collegiate atmosphere which underlined our discussions. I look forward to continuing this into the new year as we welcome new members to our panel. Now on to the recommendations, of which there are a number before the Cabinet today, from a few different areas, and I won't be able to get into detail on each of them here. I'll start with Merton's School Street programme, which we should be incredibly proud of. Merton has more school streets than any other borough in London, and I know there are still more calls for them across the borough. Of course, there was such ambition, there are always ways to hone our approach, and I think the recommendations here, including ways to further highlight the presence of school streets to residents, will be beneficial for any future schemes. On active travel, we all know how vital it is to encourage walking and cycling in the borough, and it's fantastic that we will soon have a strategy on that very topic coming to scrutiny soon. I recently had the pleasure of travelling to Copenhagen in the last few weeks, a city which many hold up as the North Star of accessibility. Yet it wasn't born that way, but rather built over years of concentrated and concerted efforts. From cleaner air to healthier people, it is vital we continue to make Merton a place that residents feel safe and secure getting on 2 wheels in our streets. On homelessness, Merton has a London leading reputation on getting people off our streets. I'm glad this work led by Elliot and his team have been acknowledged by the panel. It's difficult work, often dealing with people in difficult situations and made all the more difficult by years of austerity. But I'm glad we're doing everything we can to help these people in their communities where support can better easily be accessed. On the Brickfield Road Traveller site, the call represented an opportunity to shine light on the council's work with the residents and the site. And I'm sure Councillors Judge and McCabe welcome the chance to engage with those at the site and hear any concerns if they haven't already, as I know work was already going on with this at the time of the call. And finally, I'd like to thank Councillor Mundy for his hard work chairing the planning committee and for bringing the issue of underreporting Merton's planning record. I'm sure all will welcome the chance to ensure that Merton's data reporting is first rate and that our achievements are properly recorded. Thank you all.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Councillor Newson. Now, Councillor Alan Brittis to respond to school streets and travel scrutiny.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Councillor Neveson for his work on these 2 subjects and for the work of your councillor colleagues. I can confirm that with reference to agenda item 5, school streets, the recommendations that you made to us will be taken on board, taken seriously, and that's planters and more information on school term times. And with regard to active travel and cycling infrastructure, I can confirm that we will, in our strategic document, look to resourcing that document, commissioning, but also look to those quick wins that you want. Thank you very much.
And then on the scrutiny reference on the traveller site and development control and homelessness, Councillor.
Well, thank you, Councillor Neveson, and thank you to your committee as well for their very complete approach to recommendations. In respect to the traveller site, I have visited it with Merton officers and with Councillor MacArthur, who raised the issues initially in the scrutiny panel, and it was a very useful visit, actually, just to get to see the site as it is at the present time and to chat to residents about their concerns. And we were also accompanied by the site supervisor from Clarion, because this site is run by Clarion under a management agreement with the council who own the site. There were issues that arose. One is the residents' concern that we don't have adequate fire equipment on the site, and that this has not been pursued with speed by Clarion. So Merton officers will be working with Clarion on a fairly urgent response to ensure either we have fire hoses as preferred by the residents, or we have some wholly appropriate alternative to offset that fire risk. Another was that there are no Merton waste bins on the site, so we're going to have to deliver on those waste bins what residents have actually been using their own bins, or bins they've obtained from, in many cases, other boroughs, and some of them are broken, so we need a proper audit of those bins, and we need to replace them. There's an ongoing issue of lack of pest control on the site, with a number of residents reporting a proliferation of rats. It's quite close to the river, but there's also been fire tipping nearby, and that's not good in terms of controlling the rat population. So it's really important that we work with the residents, that we work with Clarion to actually address these issues. In terms of development control reporting, this is effectively the software systems that we have in a number of areas, most particularly planning. And it's called an M3 procurement project team has been established to replace the software used by development management, planning, building control, environmental health and land charges. Officers from across the council are working on it. A recommendation, so the recommendation, actually the panel has already been achieved. The project team is looking at options for improvement for efficiency as part of the procurement exercise. And there are some very close deadlines, and in fact, they're for today, to review the invite to tender documents, review the bidders' response documents, and finalise the terms and conditions with legal team. And the project board will be considering the following. Are all of the requirements there, including the opportunities to improve processes and efficiencies? Are they in the right section, mandatory or desirable? What specifically would the council like the suppliers to explain it as to how they can deliver a requirement? And there's been helpful information around differentiation between different boroughs. And what should the suppliers show on the demonstration? So that work is being taken forward with speed, and it's really important, actually, for the teams involved. It's important we don't have really very old systems that can't keep up with the speed and efficiency in these services. And in respect of homelessness, I'm very grateful for the supportive recommendations of the panel supporting cabinet policy. Effectively saying, carry on, and we're happy to do that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Alan Brittas. Thank you, Councillor Judge. And we've been asked to make the reference. And we will respond as required. Thank you very much, Councillor Lees. Moving to item 10, which is Borough Sport Blueprint. Councillor Cooper-Martin.
Thank you very much, Chair. Can I start off first by saying thanks to the officers, and I know that Dan is not here, but thanks to him. Also, we have our consultants, Mike Typer and David Gentles, who are not here as well, but great thanks and appreciation to them for the work that they put through on this Borough Sport Blueprint. So it has been just over a year since we announced our priority to make Merton London's Borough of Sport. And since then, we've had, we've met with many organizations, partners, many individuals, and I've had many conversations. We've also had some successes along the way. But the blueprint is what we've been waiting for. The document that will focus our minds on what we want to achieve in becoming a Borough of Sport, which is what we have before us here tonight. So our aim is to ensure that all residents, but particularly those under 16 and over 65, and those from less affluent communities, have access to physical activity and sport at least once a week. This includes walking, running, dancing, and any activity that gets them moving and having fun at the same time. We want to put Merton on the map for sport and celebrate collectively our borough's rich heritage, sporting heritage. And the blueprint demonstrates our commitment to achieving this. The report before you The report before you shows how we intend to achieve this, and includes, just give you a bit of what's in there, a small grant fund that will be created and be awarded to community groups focused on supporting our core group of residents, that is those under 16 and those 65 and over. We're also going to create a public forum to bring together commercial and volunteers, sport and physical activity providers. And this forum will have its first meeting in September. We will also create an advisory group that will meet regularly, and will include key partners and also council staff members. And this will also start in September. But even more exciting will be a bespoke Borough of Sport Get Active portal. It will be powered by London Sport. So this is being developed currently. This will be a very sophisticated system that will filter activities to promote what is on offer to the target audience, and will drive take-up of local free and paid for sports and physical activity opportunities. So, this on this portal will also be encouraging residents to log on and to be able to find the activity that they are interested in. And with that, I present the report.
Thank you, Councillor Kipmarvie. Going to ask John, is there anything you'd like to have your attention?
I'd just like to add a big thank you to Monica David for all the officers with the Borough of Sport. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So opening the floor to Cabinet colleagues for any questions or comments. Councillor Christie.
Thank you, Leader. Could this is really positive, and I'm really pleased that this blueprint is being brought to Cabinet tonight. So thanks to the Cabinet member and officers. But could you just tell us what success we've had in bringing in external funding to support creating Merton as the London Borough of Sport?
Thank you very much, Councillor Christie, for your question. Although we're just getting the blueprint through Cabinet, but we've had some achievements so far. And so, for example, we've had £650,000 invested from the LTA to renovate 43 of our tennis courts. And we've also secured over £300,000 from the Department for Education for 22 of our schools to develop sporting activities. We've also had 8 sport-related projects where we were awarded a total of £684,000 from the Council's Civic Pride Fund recently. So we've had. Actually, I must also mention that we've had the All England Club. We've worked with them to bring the widescreen to Mitcham for the championship, and we know that it's always been in Wimbledon. We've had it in Mitcham last year, and we've also secured it for Mitcham this year, and also for Morden. Can I also mention, we're talking about successes, I'd like to also mention our London Youth Games have had successes. Many of our young people have won medals. And Merton, at the beginning of this administration, Merton was at number 28 out of 33. We are currently standing at in the first place to win the most improved borough. But also from 33, we are at number 6 for winning the all medal. I'm not saying we're going to win it, but I think that's a very good position to be in. So yes, we've had great successes so far. Thank you.
It's a huge thanks to Sean McGuinness for his work on the London Youth Games. Councillor McCabe.
Thank you, Leader. Could I ask the Cabinet member to reflect on how important sport and physical activity is for the health and well-being of older residents, and to tell us how the Borough Sport Blueprint would support over 65s to become more active.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor McKay. Physical activity is very important to our older residents because we all know that the older we get, the slower we become. And so if we keep moving, that will help us. And so we are committed to working with our older residents to make sure that they are keeping active. And so far, we have over 400 free classes for physical activities for residents over 65 in all of our libraries across the borough. And these are proving to be quite popular. We want our older people to get back on their bikes, put on their walking shoes, their running shoes, their dancing shoes, whatever it is that keep them active and that they prefer to do. And we will be supporting them and encouraging them to do so. And should our borough plan blueprint be approved, we'll be working hard to make it easier for older residents to keep active, free of no charge. Thank you.
Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Murray, for your this strategy and the work we're doing in this area. Obviously, our green spaces and our parks are beloved not just here in Merton but across London. So it'd be really great to hear just how they're going to be used in part of this kind of key piece of strategy for us.
Thank you very much, Councillor Irons. Our parks are crucial in achieving our borough's sport ambitions. We've already refurbished our multi-use games area and encouraging people to get out and get active in them. We're going to use our parks for park run events. And I will be creating opportunities for residents across the board to get out into our beautiful parks and use them. As I mentioned earlier, we've also working with the LTA, and we are upgrading our tennis courts and improving our paddling pools and other park facilities. Thank you.
Councillor Fraser.
Thank you very much, Chair. And also, Cabinet Member, you've given us a really interesting array of what you're doing. But I'd like to ask, the cost of living crisis means that many families can't afford to get their children into sporting opportunities. How are we supporting children and young people to be able to access these sports? Please.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fraser. And one of our ambitions is to, one of our ambitions in becoming a borough of sport is to ensure that our children and young people aged between 4 and 16 are participating in sporting or other physical activities weekly. And that's key. We want to make sure that it's regular. And this will help them to gain the health, social and economic benefits that will bring. We just recently announced our kids swim for free offer. And so therefore, kids in Merton can now swim for free in all of our leisure centers. So we'll be supporting them in that. Thank you.
There's no further indications. Thank you, Cabinet colleagues. We're being asked to agree recommendations A to D. They agree. Agree. Thank you. So we're moving on to item 11, which is the council delivery of affordable housing. Councillor John.
Thank you, Legal. This is a very important report because it will begin the process of this council delivering truly affordable, exemplary, low carbon homes and delivering effectively social-friendly homes for the first time in a generation. So the recommendations of this report are about entering into a collaboration agreement with the Housing Association, L&Q, to enable us to have that development capacity that we have lacked hitherto and that would hold us back if we were not able to engage their staff and their experience. And initially, the collaboration agreement will be for the first 93 of 400 homes. That's 93 homes on the first 4 sites, which have planning permission, although one of them is going to be partially redesigned. And so therefore may actually deliver more than 93 homes. And they will all be redesigned to some extent to keep pace with modern changes in building regulations and to introduce passive house standards. It's about the Cabinet approving further expenditure of £176,500 to cover the reasonably incurred costs in taking the design activity through and the professionals activity through to the tender stage. And I would certainly place emphasis on recommendation D, which is that our ambition is to create exemplar, sustainable, low or zero carbon homes. And this will be based on a materials-led approach. That's basically the building materials you build the homes from, the thickness of the walls, the triple glazing that you can put in to ensure that energy is used efficiently and that heat does not escape. And really our ambition is to reduce energy costs for residents to the lowest possible level at this very difficult time of the cost of living crisis. And we'll be looking at various options. We'll be investigating exemplary developments across London and elsewhere in England, looking at the people who design them, looking at how they have been delivered. So that is our ambition. I think it is a milestone in the development of these homes, and we can always only wish them Godspeed in delivery. Thank you.
No, nothing.
Okay, so opening up to colleagues, any questions? Councillor Christie.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you to the Cabinet member. It's really exciting that we're going to be moving into a phase of delivering homes here in Merton again. If I could just ask how throughout the process so far and going forward we are working to minimise the risk profile of the council in building these new homes.
Well, a very important question, and particularly for yourself, Councillor Christie, with your responsibilities. Well, first of all, L&Q will be delivering this service at cost. It's not at profit. And the immediate issue we faced is that lack of capacity after 30 or 40 years when we haven't actually built homes. So L&Q themselves have built up to 3,000 homes a year. They have immense experience, and that will provide us, we believe, with the construction management capacity, and that will reduce our risk. And to support the total programme of 400 social rented homes over this council term, we're carrying out an asset review. And that will look at the financial appraisals for the delivery of those homes and the options to deliver in order to balance delivery against financial and other risks. And we will look to find opportunities as well as the 400 homes to deliver other homes, such as mixed tenure schemes, perhaps shared ownership and the like, and look at disposals of other properties to cross-subsidise what's required to deliver the 400 social rented homes. And we hope to bring recommendations following that asset review back to Cabinet in the autumn to look at the forward programme. So thank you for your question.
Councillor Stringer.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Cabinet member, for your work on this. And as a member of Generation Rent, I'm well aware of the housing crisis in London, how people are being priced out in Merton and beyond. And I think we definitely need to build just any more homes, but we particularly know that it's those at the lowest income levels who are in most dire straits. So we need more affordable homes. How are we ensuring this affordability in the houses that we're building?
Well, it's our commitment really, that the first 93 will be social rent, and that we'll build 400 social rents in all, minimum of 400 social rents in all by the end of effectively the next 3 years, take into account the fact that we may actually start some homes and not quite have completed them, but nonetheless, that is our intention and our commitment to do our best in that respect. And in certain areas, as I mentioned, there may be opportunities for a small proportion of shared ownership schemes. Now, typically, these have been quite expensive in recent years in London. So we must look at, if we're to build shared ownership, how can we make them genuinely affordable for young people, young families starting off to actually attain the ownership without going to the bank of mum and dad, which many people do not have. So genuine affordability has got to be a watchword.
Thank you. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Andrew, for all the work you're doing on this, because it is fantastic news that Merton will be building first council homes of generation. What are the other benefits to our relationship and partnership with L&Q as they deliver these houses?
Well, a very good question again, given our other commitments on this council and in this council. L&Q are committed to upskilling our staff and providing training and expertise so we can build our own in-house capacity and experience. And that's going to relate not only to these 400 homes, but to our council programmes beyond that of regeneration. And we'll be working again to deliver them to exemplary passive house and low carbon house standards to help meet our climate change priorities and to ensure sustainability and low energy bills for residents. We'll work with L&Q where possible to make development opportunities available to local companies and job opportunities for local people. And we will consider how and where we can provide opportunities for apprenticeships. And L&Q are providing this support, as I mentioned, at costs rather than charging a profit. And we do believe they are committed to increasing the supply of genuinely affordable homes in London. And we believe they believe that supporting councils, particularly those who are looking to restart their own delivery of homes, is an important part of their overall programme.
Councillor Ryan.
I just wanted to make a comment really, and just how exciting it is to be part of an administration that's building affordable homes in this current climate, and to be able to do that. It feels really good to be able to do things of this scale, but also just to really praise our ambition to make these homes sustainable and to use materials that mean we don't have to retrofit later. So we're building the right type of housing from the start. So I'm really proud of that work, and thank you for being focused on that.
Thank you for that, Councillor Anderson. I think it's really important that we try and set the standard, that we endeavour to build exemplary homes. The climate crisis is perhaps, and the biodiversity crisis, are the greatest challenges that this generation faces. The future of the planet, the future of civilization rests on it, and everything we do should be seeking to push at the sides of the envelope to increase our ambition. And in a smaller way, we managed to do that in the past with the Merton rule about on-site renewable energy. When we set the standard, it was followed by 140 local authorities, was then adopted by the British government and enshrined in legislation. So that demonstrated to me how local councils can really make a difference, not only for the borough in which we live, but for our wider national community.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. I don't see any more indications. So Cabinet, we've been asked to agree recommendations A to G. Are they agree? Good. So moving on to item 12, which is an update on consultation and proposed introduction of selective and additional licensing. Councillor Judge.
Thank you. Well, this report provides an update on 3 key projects which have been reported to Cabinet and to Council in the past. First of all, proposals for selective licensing and additional licensing schemes, which will require a license for the private rented sector properties and for houses in multiple occupation not covered by the current HMO regulations, which do apply to properties with 5 or more occupants. And the purpose is to inspect and require decent standards of amenity and the elimination of hazards for residents in rented properties. Many rented properties are of a good standard, some are not. Some landlords are enforced. And it is to introduce these regulations to ensure better standards that we're directing. And we have already introduced an immediate article or direction, which requires small houses and flat shares to seek planning permission for conversions, instead of being simply covered by permitted development rules. So the purpose is to raise standards of amenity, space, room space standards, quality of communal facilities, and reduce noise, improve waste facilities, reduce antisocial behaviour arising from HMOs. There's also a note about the Empty Homes project. We estimate there are up to 2,000 empty homes in this borough. We have a housing crisis, and yet at least 2,000 owners pursue the ostensibly irrational posture of not using their homes and not renting them out. We want to address that through a range of measures, but starting through a cross-borough collaboration, particularly with Wandsworth. Now, on the licensing proposals, there's been an extensive consultation on the main proposals up to 22nd of January. They included 487 completed questionnaires, direct mail responses, solicitors' letters, comments made during 2 landlords' forums, and a forum specifically set up on Article 4, and comments made during stakeholders' forum. We've had a careful analysis of the evidence and all the data that's been provided to consider carefully what measures can be reasonably and proportionately justified and where they can be justified. And following a review of the consultation responses, we recommend that we confirm 4 wards for selective licensing: Figgs Marsh, Graveney, Long Thornton and Pollard's Hill, with selective licensing going live in September. Confirm 7 wards for additional licensing. That's in respect of HMOs. And they are Figgs Marsh, Graveney, Long Thornton, Pollard's Hill, Colliers Wood, Cricket Green and Lavender Fields. And to approve the licensing fees set out in Appendix D. And following confirmation at Council, as I mentioned, the Article 4 direction is already in place for the same 7 wards as we're looking at for the additional license. And what is very encouraging is that the government have looked at the evidence we provided for the Article 4 direction, and they've confirmed that they won't be intervening. And they have intervened in other Article 4 directions in other parts of the country, because they've deemed the evidence to be insufficient. But that is not the case here. And I want to pay immense tribute to Leslie for the detailed and careful work that Leslie's pursued over many months to take these various projects through to fruition. And thank you very much. And we owe you a debt in that respect. And I should say, there's always a risk of compensation claims. And we've had legal threats, but we take legal advice, and we're fairly confident of the direction in which we're heading.
Thank you, Councillor Judge. Lucy or Leslie, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, just to add my thanks as well to Leslie and the team who've done a super work and ready to go live in September.
All I would like to add is that, there is the team behind, and I'd like to put the project manager, Camilla Banji, with me as well. So it's her hard work and Sean's spot, so it's not just me. Thank you.
Thank you for the availability and effort in getting us to this place and at such speed. But obviously it's been measured with the evidence background as well. So opening up the floor for comments or questions from Cabinet members. Councillor McKay.
Thank you, Leader. Remember, I'd like to share a story from yesterday. I was out knocking on doors and I met a woman who described her housing conditions, and she was crying towards them. And you couldn't help but be moved, because she talked about living in a flat where her 2 children were sharing a bedroom, and there was a great deal of mold. It's in one of our, it's in a housing association property that I made that one. And she had talked about getting a transfer, and the housing association pretty much told her that there was actually no chance, and it left her in despair. She was suffering from depression. One of her children had a respiratory illness, and I said, well, the council is doing something. It's a small step. It's a beginning, but possibly a drop in the ocean. At least we recognise the problem and we're trying to address it. And she actually said, please thank the people that are responsible for that. And she knows that there's no magic wand solution, but I felt that she was given some hope in a really difficult situation. So thank you from her.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Councillor McCabe. There's no further indications. So Cabinet, we're being asked to agree recommendations A to I. They agree?
Agreed.
Thank you. So moving on to Merton Event Management and Safety Advisory Groups. Councillor Stringer.
Thank you very much, Leader. So as colleagues know, we have many amazing green spaces and other public spaces in our borough, and we're really keen for these to be used for a whole range of different events. So from small family parties and birthday picnics through to much larger community festivals and concerts and everything in between. Such events already happen week in, week out, and many of those larger event organisers do work well with us as a borough to ensure that there are no negative impacts on local residents. But this paper outlines some proposals and policies to go further, to make it easier for people to apply to hold an event on our land, and to ensure that we then have robust processes for ensuring they are managed safely. So what we're proposing is firstly introducing a new overarching event management process, starting with procuring specialist software. So there will be one front door for anyone applying to hold an event. There would then be a clear process and framework for establishing when a SAG, a safety advisory group, is needed for the event, and a formal SAG safety advisory group structure. So the aim of all this work is to ensure that Merton attracts events and attracts therefore the investment and the excitement that they bring, but that these events are safe, successful and well run. So the appendices include the proposed events policy and the SAG terms of reference and the proposed charges for event applications. So these charges will cover the costs of processing these applications and running this system. Though in line with our civic pride objectives, we are waiving the fee for charity and community events. The report also outlines the Sports Ground Safety Association audit of the AFC Wimbledon Plough Lane Stadium. And we were asked to note its findings in the association's action plan. But I'd like to update colleagues that since those papers were published, we've had a further audit report shared with us. There's recognised the hard work that's gone into since the previous audit, and therefore has recognised that the risk has now been lowered. Brilliant news. And they particularly note the excellent monitoring arrangements carried out by the lead officer. So I'd like to echo this and thank Sarah Twin in particular for her hard work. On the broader plan, a number of officers from different teams have been involved in putting this together. So I'd like to thank them all, particularly James Armitage, who couldn't be here tonight for his work on this.
Okay, brilliant. And sort of open the floor for questions, comments. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Leader. I'd like to thank the Cabinet member very much for this. And I'm a great believer in all our parks being used as fully as they possibly can be. And I've particularly noticed, as everyone knows, I walk so many of the parks with the dog, Morden Park is underused. And I'm really pleased to see we've got plans to use that. There have been events in the past, but my concern is within this structure, how will you ensure the safe use of all the parks, especially when there are major events happening, as there have been in Morden Park, where there have been some tricky incidents.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Councillor Kenny. And it's a very fair question, and that's exactly what we're trying to address. So the new process will mean that any event that has the potential to affect residents in the immediate or surrounding area, so a big festival in Morden Park would be a very clear example of that, would have to go through this SAG process. And the SAG meetings would involve partnerships from a range of different departments, including regulatory services, but other experts, to ensure that the kind of safety expertise that we have in the council is being used in partnership with the events organisers. And that they are then, it's very clear what the event organisers need to do to make sure that it is safe and it's not having that negative impact on residents like in your wards.
Councillor Cooper.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Stringer, for your report. And my main concern is about grassroots sports events, and I just wonder how we will be able to support them in this work.
Yes, so this is about recognising when events are going beyond what would otherwise be happening. So a kind of a regular kind of sports events that's happening in local parks are exactly the type of thing that, you know, we're not going to set up undue unnecessary process around those. But if, for example, it's a regular sports event that then wants to put on a kind of bigger festival, then we would say, okay, let's have a conversation with you and work out how we can minimise the impact. Because we completely, you know, me and my colleagues and the team completely are supportive of the borough of sports work that we're doing, and this is not about adding any red tape that would make it harder for any of those organisations. Thank you.
Okay, so Cabinet, we're being asked to agree recommendations A to P. Do they agree?
Agree.
We're moving on to item 14, the tree strategy. Councillor.
Okay. I just wanted to thank our officers, so John Bosley, Andrew Kaufman, all our tree officers for pulling this together. It's been a long time coming and a lot of work, so thank you so much for their efforts gone into this. It goes without saying how important our trees are to our environment, to our well-being and to biodiversity, so it's a pleasure to bring forward the Council's first ever tree strategy. You'll note in the report that it will be dedicated to Dave Lofthouse, who was one of Merton's longest serving horticultural officers. He worked for the council for 33 years. And his legacy and commitment to Merton's trees can be seen throughout the borough, and it's a testament to his hard work that we are in the position we are today. So as part of our response to the climate emergency, we are aiming to increase our tree canopy by 10% by 2050. And that means not only planting new trees, but protecting the ones that we currently have. So this strategy focuses on 3 key aims, which is to maintain our existing tree stock, protect our trees from a range of issues, from things like causing subsidence or disease, and to enhance and optimise our tree population. So planting more trees, yes, but looking at new species and looking at ways we can increase biodiversity throughout the borough. This strategy focuses on council-owned trees, so it's just phase 1. Phase 2 will focus on trees on private property, because to increase our canopy, we need to also look at that, and work has begun to scope that out at the moment. And it will also form part of our wider green space strategy that we're starting to scope out as well, which will encompass things around biodiversity and how we increase that in our parks, green spaces, and on private property. So happy to take any comments or questions, but thank you very much. Bye.
John, do you have anything to add?
No, just a bit of relief that we've delivered this, and thank you to Matthew Reed for
Thank you, John. Cabinet colleagues, any questions, statements, Councillor Joe?
But Dave Lofthouse was passionate about trees, and I think he communicated that to all the people with whom we worked, volunteers, councillors, officers, and that is carried forward in this tree strategy. I think it's very welcome, and the ambition that we're going to increase our tree canopy, by 10% by 2050, that's a very challenging time, because many trees are going to die in the meantime through climate change and other pest diseases, etc. It's really challenging, but very, very necessary. Temperatures are going to increase. We need to increase the cover, the shade that we have throughout the borough, because it will affect people's quality of life. I've often felt that where people live as well, in housing estates, in avenues, in streets, we need trees, and largely because it improves people's quality of life, it improves their appreciation of the environment, and for their happiness as they go through the trade. So I just approve it, and I wish it every support.
Councillor Stringer?
Yeah, I just simply wanted to welcome this strategy. I think it's brilliant. You know, trees are such a huge part of why Merton is seen as, you know, a green and leafy borough. I particularly want to congratulate the cabinet member and colleagues on the planting of 10,000 trees over the past year. Well done. And then this is the next step. It's, you know, planting the trees and then the maintenance of them. So I'm glad that we're taking it seriously.
Excellent. Okay, Cabinet, we're being asked to agree recommendations A and B. Do they agree? Agreed. Thank you. So we're moving to item 15, which is breast cancer screening, childhood immunisations and reducing self-harm among young people. Councillor McKay.
Thank you, Leader. I think this report covers some very important subject areas, and it's an extensive report which talks about in all three of these areas, both the performance and the plans for the future under each of those headings we're looking at. It came as a result of a motion approved at the July council meeting requesting a report on this. But the story starts before that because the Healthier Communities Overview, I think it's an older people's overview and scrutiny panel, deep breath, had considered this at its previous meeting and have had a report on a number of these issues. And it's important to kind of recognise that this area requires and relies on a partnership with our colleagues in health. Things like different elements of health are responsible for. All of this is set out in the report, and things that we are not obviously involved with, but we've got a scrutiny role and the public health as a scrutiny role with all of these. I think going to the scrutiny panel discussion, there was a sense in which performance is not good. It states that in the report. There are all sorts of reasons why London lags behind the rest of the country in some of these areas. I don't think we should just accept that. I think we should strive for better. And that's one of the key things that emerge from the discussion. But I would like to draw your attention to the little map at the top of page 247, which shows the breast screening centres in South West London. And there was a cross-party view that it just seemed an issue of health inequalities for Merton to be the only borough in South West London not to have its own breast screening centre. And some of the excuses that were put forward, and I'm using the word excuses, so I don't accept them, were that our residents can travel on a bus to St George's or to Sutton. And I find myself thinking, well, actually, the residents of Merton would deserve the same access to NHS resources as the residents in all the other boroughs in South West London. And in the case of two of those boroughs, they've got two breastfeeding centres. And so that's why one of the recommendations is that we should, as a cabinet, call on that. And no, the report is very detailed. I can't possibly come up with it in a few minutes to discuss this, but I am happy to recommend we approve all the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor McKay. Bill, do you have anything to add? Brilliant, thank you. Okay, Cabinet members, Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the Cabinet member, Peter McKay. As most of you know, I come from a health background, long-standing, and find it rather difficult to find out that we don't have a screening system here in Merton. I've lost 2 of my family members to breast cancer, and it's distressing. And to travel to other places, Councillor McCabe already mentioned, we don't want to travel anywhere. We really want to have it done here. So what powers do we have to get one of these screening machines in this borough, please?
Well, I think the honest answer is that we don't have power to say we want one and we will set one up. What we have to do is work in partnership with our colleagues in health. I think actually showing them the map and repeating what our councillors on the panel said, why is Merton the only one, is a good start. But we have had already some discussions, the most recent of which took place about 2 hours ago, when I pressed one of our local health colleagues to get this done. And wouldn't it be nice if we could have such a thing in the Wilson Hospital, and that is providing health services for people in Mitchell.
Okay, there's no further indications. Cabinet have been asked to agree recommendations A to C. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 16, Community Opportunities Framework for People with a Learning Disability. Councillor McKay.
Thank you, Leader. This report sets out a plan to develop a framework for people with learning disability and other disability. And the recommendations are very clear. But I would like to draw your attention to section 3, which sets out the key objectives of Community Opportunities Framework. And it's really important to recognise that the framework is going to encourage the development of high quality community-based activities for people with learning disabilities, mental health and physical disabilities, hence increasing choice for community-based activities and provisions for our residents. It's also important to flag up, because I think some people might be anxious when they hear about this, that the model that we're creating is about providing flexibility going forward. But our model for day opportunities, however, continues to be recognised, and we recognise the need for high quality buildings-based services to remain part of the overall provision mix, because that's something it's about. I don't like if really would like to go into any more detail, but we're happy to answer all questions.
Nothing to add from me. I think just to reinforce that point, so this was off the back of an engagement exercise where we heard from nearly 500 people, half of which were people with a learning disability, and they're very clear to that there are merits in building-based services, but we need more diversity and alternatives. So hopefully they feel that it's action directly from what they told us.
Thank you. Certainly the floor to colleagues. If there's any comments, questions? Okay, so we've been asked to agree recommendations A to C. They agree?
Agreed.
Thank you. Moving on to award of contract for the Disabled Facilities Grant Funded Adaptation Service. Councillor Judge.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to seek the approval of Cabinet for the award of the contract for the provision of the Disabled Facilities Grant Funded Adaptations Service to a single contractor following a single stage tender process. And the Disabled Facilities Grant is a means tested capital which can contribute towards the cost of providing of equipment and adapting a home, for example, scaling, creating a level access shower room, widening doorways, providing ramps and hoists, or creating a ground floor extension. Officers are confident that the tendering process that we've engaged in has been robust and that current market circumstances would not allow a better outcome than the one we have obtained. The new contract will be for an initial period of 3 years from the 4th of September, with an option at the discretion of the council to extend the term for a further period or periods of any duration up to a maximum of 2 years. And the bid sum relates to the contractor operating service, in effect, together with partners operating as the council's home improvement agency. We have a statutory responsibility in this regard to award disabled facilities grants. And we've been following the recommendations for improvements during this contracting process. So under current recommendations, the authority submits invoices for its fees with invoices from contractors such as lift or disabled bathroom installers, and the council pays the HIA and the contractors directly. Now, procedures will be developed under the contract management arrangements to ensure the contractor works and associated invoice are subject to checks and sign-off, including site inspections, commensurate with the value of the works. About efficiency, and it's about the quality of delivery for households in Merton. In addition, quality control and complaint management processes are a contract requirement, and these measures will, we believe, improve transparency and enable the council to achieve value. The system is required to be auditable and will be monitored by officers as part of the contract management arrangements. And the contract will be subject to periodic monitoring reviews and an annual performance review, and will be take place prior to consideration for extending the contract beyond the initial. So thank you, Leader. I'd be glad to, if there are any questions to John Wall.
John, is there anything you'd like to add? Brilliant, thank you. Are there any questions? No? Okay, brilliant. We're being asked to agree recommendations A to B, and they agree.
Agree.
Excellent. So moving to item 18, Civic Pride Reserve Fund allocations. Councillor Street.
Thank you very much, Leader. So, as you know, restoring civic pride is one of our administration's key priorities, and this paper outlines some of the funding that we are allocating towards this aim. So we had set aside 2 million of reserves for this purpose last year, and here we outline a proposed programme of work. We propose a range of uses with the overall aim of improving the look and feel of our town centres and borough gateways, but also some revenue funding for activities to support our local neighbourhoods and our local economy more broadly. So this reserves funding complements projects that are to be funded from other budgets, particularly some capital programme bids and some community infrastructure levy. So that's the tax that we charge on developers. And you'll see from the report some examples of the types of projects that we've funded in the past. And in the appendix, you can see some of the details of those Civic Pride branded programmes that we're putting forward. So these reserves are to be allocated over 3 years. We've purposely left some unallocated within years so that we can respond to emerging issues and ideas, and we're asking for delegated authority on those. We've already begun to release small amounts of this funding to support immediate priorities that couldn't be funded from other budgets. I'm particularly excited about our investment in projects like Mitcham Town Centre and Mitcham Carnival. So I'd like to thank Paul McGarry and his colleagues for their hard work on this and for his team for delivering on the project so far. I look forward to seeing lots of change as we get this money out the door over the next 3 years.
Thank you.
No,
I'll take the liberty of being chair to ask the first question. As somebody that's grown up in Mitcham, and I know I'm not alone sitting around at the cabinet table, I think a lot of excellent work is being planned, and it's really exciting stuff that Mitcham residents can really get behind and breathe new life into the town centre. I guess the question on many people's lips, including mine, will be how quickly can we get going with some of this stuff?
Yeah, so this is a big time of change for Mitcham. You know, we've had the sad loss of a major retail unit there, and more broadly, the team have been working with the owners of that site in particular to see what can happen there. But in the meantime, we as a council are stepping in and trying to support the town centre. So we are consulting with local residents about what they see as a future of Mitcham, and you can find that consultation online. You Google Merton Mitcham consultation. But we're going straight in with appointing a town centre manager. We think we need dedicated resource focused on looking after the area, getting to know the local businesses, troubleshooting the issues, but also visioning of what could happen there. That appointment has been made, and the person will be in post in the coming week. So local residents will hopefully see something else about quite soon. We're also going to be appointing a market manager very soon as well to bring new life to that market space where we previously had invested in it, and it's legacy of kind of previous work from colleagues here. But we have the infrastructure there, but we haven't had enough resource to attract and work with stall holders and show them the potential that Mitcham market would be. And again, that will be coming along over the next few months.
Excellent stuff. Thank you, Councillor Schmer. Are there any other questions or comments? No? All right, so we are being asked to agree recommendations A to C. They agree? Brilliant. Thank you very much. Right, so we'll move on to item 19, London Borough of Merton Treasury Management Strategy Annual Review 2022-2023. Councillor Billy Christie.
Yes, thank you, Leader. So as you say, this is the review for our treasury management activity from last financial year as against the strategy that we agreed at last year's budget setting meeting. First of all, I'm pleased to say that again, all of our activity was in compliance with our agreed strategy and with the system code of practice, and that's thanks to the professionalism and of our fantastic team of officers, especially Nemarche and Roger, so my thanks go to them. Secondly, the report shows that we continue to be under-borrowed and have had a positive return from our investments this year, better than budgeted, contributing to the council's very strong financial position overall. This is, of course, in some part due to the successful sale of Chas at the start of this year, and our ability to invest the funds, use some of the capital received to pay back some of our historic debt. The report does include some really useful context about how we're performing despite the very challenging sort of wider economic circumstances. I suppose in one specific context, the increased interest rates have seen an increased return to the council on its investments, which obviously has been beneficial, but of course the Conservatives continuing sort of wreaking havoc on our economy is clearly continuing to cause chaos in people's lives with the interest rate fluctuations and the Tory mortgage premium causing misery to homeowners, including myself. Obviously, also the soaring cost of living has undoubtedly put pressure on many council services. So I suppose you could say this is a situation of giving in one hand and taking with the other. But I would say ultimately the report demonstrates a really strong performance by officers, and we should be grateful for their hard work, and that's contributed to us being in such a strong and secure financial position.
Thank you, Councillor Christie. Roger.
Just very briefly, just to build on the use of the Chas money, and we've now purchased some £84 million worth of gilts, which are ranging from 4 to 26 years. So that will continue to underpin the medium-term financial strategy in the way that you wished. And earning those gilts alone will be earning some 3% interest. And actually, because of the price of the gilt, we will also generate a cash gain yield on maturity of some 2.2. So we're in a good position over the medium term using that.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, so we've been asked to agree recommendation A to make the update. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Item 20, the outcome report 2022-2023. Councillor Christie.
Yeah, thank you. So this is the outturn from last financial year. Colleagues, I'm sure will remember that the period 10 monitoring report, which was for January of this year, and which was the last monitoring report that we saw before this outturn, projected a £2.7 million favourable variance. And this report shows that our accounts closed with a £2.3 million favourable variance, which has been transferred to a newly created Strategic Priorities Reserve Fund. Those funds will be used to, or allocated to, help the administration further our priorities of restoring civic pride, building a sustainable environment and becoming a borough of sport, and plan for how those will be allocated coming forward soon. I do want to congratulate again officers, in particular Roger, for the very rigorous and accurate financial monitoring that they've been doing throughout the year. The accuracy of the period 10 projection, certainly in comparison to previous years, is a real achievement. As I was highlighting throughout the past year, the relatively small net variance masks a larger differential between departmental overspends and income and benefits realised in our corporate provisions. But in the new budget that we agreed in March this year, we are confident that we've addressed some of the structural issues causing those overspends. And so it will probably be important to keep a close eye on that through the regular monitoring reports that we will receive. Thank you.
It's Councillor Christine Rogers. Excellent. Are there any questions, comments? Yeah, Councillor Kenny.
Thank you very much to the Cabinet Member for his report and all the work that's been done to produce such a good financial situation. But we've all heard about the extremely worrying news from Woking, where they're, hate to say the figure, but an enormously badly managed finances by the Conservative Council there. And so what reassurances can you give to Merton residents that our finances are safe and secure and much, much more stable than other boroughs? We won't have horrific stories like this coming out at all, and that everyone feels secure in what we're doing.
Yeah, I think that's a really important question. I think many residents will rightly be concerned when they hear about these horror stories, such as Woking. There are a number of others around the country where huge amounts of debt have been built up over a number of years. And so the council's been sort of crippled by an inability to pay the interest on that debt. Obviously impacted even more by the fluctuating and increasing interest rates and the pressures on councils' budgets. But I would say I can absolutely assure colleagues and residents that Merton is not in that situation at all. First of all, we haven't taken on any new loans in a number of decades. And indeed, earlier this year, we took steps to pay back approximately half of the council's historic debt from previous administrations a long time ago. So we do take our responsibility to manage council taxpayers' money seriously. We have taken the difficult decisions that I think are necessary to ensure that our spending remains within our means. And obviously this outturn report shows that we actually ended the year with a £2.3 million underspend. So I can absolutely assure colleagues and residents that Merton is in a far stronger and more secure financial position than we hear about in Woking and some of these other councils.
There's no further indication. We're being asked to agree recommendations 1 to 3. Are they agreed? Okay, and the final item is budget 24-25 and NTFS 24-28. Councillor Christie.
Thank you, Leader, me again. So this is the first update for next year's budget starting point, along with the corresponding NTFS positions. I'm sure colleagues will remember that in March this year, we approved a cost of living budget, which included more than £22 million worth of support to residents during the cost of living emergency. It also helped put us in the most secure financial position that this council has been in for generations, with a balanced budget projected at the time, both for this year and next year. However, as I'm sure we'll all be too aware, the economic situation continues to be extremely difficult, with inflation remaining very high and cost pressures on the council increasing. So this report shows we're projecting that the impact of both inflation and assumed staff pay awards on our base budget is an increase of at least £3.5 million each year over the next 4 years. So as a result of that, the roll forward position in the report indicates that there's a gap of £1.5 million that we will need to find for the next financial year, and that rises to £17 million by the 4th year, which is 2027-28. and we'll need to address those gaps through our budget setting process. But I would reassure colleagues that because of our hard work in recent years and the diligence of officers, our finances are in a very strong position, and we're well placed to be able to address these challenges in the years ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Christie. Roger, did you have anything to add?
Very briefly, just to reiterate that the gap that's now appeared is largely down to inflation. Inflation remains one of our biggest risks. I anticipate that we will have further inflationary pressures, but members will recall that we have set aside additional provision for excess inflation, so that will be sort of challenged. I expect that there will be other pressures coming in the normal course of events, but we are starting from a very solid.
Thank you, Roger. Are there any comments? No? Okay. All right. So we're being asked to agree recommendations 1 to 3. Is that agree?
Agreed.
Brilliant. Thank you. And that concludes this evening's business.